Universe, the world, the internet. It is another episode of the Music Nerds Record Club. I'm Teacher on the Radio coming in from Cookeville, Tennessee. I've got Scott Greenberg from Charlotte, North Carolina, Amy Rock from Nashville, Tennessee, and Joe G coming in from New City, New York. We're without some of our friends. We've been missing Gus, who's in Ireland. Rick's not able to join us tonight. And I heard that at the end of tonight's episode, Scott Greenberg is going to hook us up with an announcement about next month's episode, which will be on Monday, April the 21st, 2025. So we're going to jump in right away with My Morning Jacket. I'm getting a little feedback. I don't know if that's from me or, we'll mute while I do my preamble. And I'll even put me on the main screen by myself. And then as soon as I'm done, I'll bring you guys in just for the opening salvo. So we dropped our format from previous episodes of the Music Nerds Record Club and decided that we were going to have curator's choice. You could pick any topic, any format that you wanted to do. Whereas last year in season one, we picked one classic album and followed a fairly structured format for each of those episodes. And today we're going to look at two brand new albums that have just come out this month in March 2025. And then we're going to pivot to our recommended listenings from since the last time we were here, or what's tickling our ears at this early stage of the 2025 new releases, or maybe we're discovering some things from the past. I think I realized with both of the artists today that they've pretty much had a career that spanned the entire 21st century. My Morning Jacket, I think, started in 1999. So they're well into mid or late career or even legacy act standing. The same I think is going to be true for Jason Isbell. And I think there's a burden when you've developed a strong following and you have a lot of critically acclaimed records in your catalog, that when a new record comes out, there's a lot of pressure. The Jacket have been with me for 20 years since their breakout album Z, with its gloriously moody sonics, reverb, and psych vibe. They were called America's Radiohead, I think a title they shared with groups like Wilco. When I first got in to the My Morning Jacket scene, it was definitely a modern day psychedelic scene for me. I was gobbling a lot of magic mushrooms at Jacket shows and mixing those in with lots of hard liquor and other forms of liquor in general. And I was every Jacket show was in a chance to kind of break on through to the other side. Seeing them at Bonnaroo in the early days was truly mystical. And then I also had a kind of a bad time where I would sometimes black out at their concert and not remember anything that I saw or heard that particular night. I say all that too because when I got clean and sober, my Jacket fandom only intensified my appreciation for, I think, the warmth and joyfulness of their vibe. Really increased my appreciation. I dance hard. I go hard, even harder, I think, sober. I rage harder sober than I did wasted with My Morning Jacket. And that figures into something that a music biz professional whispered in my ear last September around the time that they were doing a co-headline tour with Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. My friend said, everyone is in the band is sober. They're happier than they've ever been, and the new album is ready to go. Well, it was just today that I was preparing for this episode with you all and scribbling more of my thoughts that I stumbled across a brand new episode of a mental health podcast called Depresh Mode. And in that was the first time that I heard Jim James, lead singer of My Morning Jacket, really open up a lot more about alcohol abuse and abstinence from alcohol in his personal life. And he was overall just like really vulnerable about mental health, the importance of loving yourself and having spiritual practices like meditation. I was listening to another podcast reviewing the album just the other day, a pod, I won't say the guy's name, but we've talked about them before. They're pretty important Gen X music critics. And I felt like they were slagging and dragging the record and referring to Jim as trying to be the psychedelic Marvin Gaye. And I kind of feel like that's a great a great thing to aspire to. And so they have the jam rock, psychedelic rock, southern rock things going for them, but they also have this appreciation of soul and R&B, and I think that really features prominently in this record. The new album, it grabs me from the opening moments. There's like a slow burn that's going on where they kind of just bring us in to the opening track, Out in the Open, and then it just kind of carries me all the way through. I know Scott loves the phrase, all killer, no filler. Well, I think this is for me that kind of record. No skip tracks at all. And I have this feeling that as I'm listening to it, I'm like just some kind of happy-go-lucky Puck or Peter Pan, just ignoring or defying the impending doom facing our planet and our species and our society, and just giving in to life's inherent joy. There's a sense of things I've seen at jacket shows, people playing with glow sticks and light toys and just having just a glorious, almost like a rave, Amy Rock, almost like a rave vibe at a jacket show. There's lots of really cool lyrics, ones I'm still trying to figure out. Like he has a line about the in Half a Lifetime about the motor psycho prison. I don't know what a motor psycho prison is. Everyday Magic is just a happy jam. It talks about the ripple in the fabric of all space-time. I feel Beginning from the Ending is kind of one of the more difficult tracks, but also one of the more exciting tracks there as well. There's a sense I get on the second half of the album of more of their classic rock, psychedelic vibes. I think some of these songs are going to translate to be much more live than they are on the album. And the Jacket are one of these bands that's always on tour, so they'll be starting a new tour almost immediately, and will probably stay on tour for most of the summer. So I'm going to stop talking and let some of you guys jump in. So just we can round robin it. We can go however you guys want to go, but let's start talking some more about the brand new, and the weirdly titled Is, lowercase I is.
I've actually prepared remarks, and so I'll do my best Chuck Schumer. So for me, my Morning Jacket at their best evokes an alternative reality era of AM Gold, best exemplified by songs like Golden, which is my favorite MMJ song. And on this collection, I feel like Time Wasted scratches that same itch. On the whole, this is an insanely enjoyable and pleasant listen. And I love that Brendan O'Brien produced it. He produced two really good Bruce albums. He produced Magic, Devils and Dust, and as Amy is probably chomping at the bit to say, he produced Pearl Jam's 10. The lyrics didn't hit me like they hit you, but then again, I didn't know the background. I will say this, and I listened to it 3 times. The second time I looked at the lyrics, and the other 2 times I just immersed myself in it. Out in the Open reminds me a lot of The National, and I Can Hear Your Love reminds me a lot of this old 1960s pop nugget from Mickey and Sylvia called Love is Strange that you might remember from the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. And I'm going to leave it there.
Sweet. I'll go next. I feel like both of y'all have hit on some very important points I would have brought up. Yeah, Brendan O'Brien being the producer immediately perked my ears up, because to me, he has just this magic touch that makes albums sound really good to me. I don't know what it is. Just all the instruments sound super clear. Whatever he's doing, it's for me, and I love it. And it's coming through in this album. I just really like it. I'm not the biggest Jacket fan, but you know, when I've seen them in concert and when it's put on in the right context, it's so good. And this really lands for me. I too listened to that episode from Depeche Mode this afternoon and was very excited to share with you, because like bringing normalizing, talking about mental health is super important to me too. And hearing Jim James talk about it really brought me closer to him as an artist. I've been kind of like, he's a weird guy, but like, I get it now. Like, he struggled with alcoholism. He has been working really hard on his mental health, and hearing that in this album, a lot of the, like you said, happiness in here just like is really resonating, and it feels good. And yeah, a lot of the songs have those great jam bits that are going to be awesome live. And that's my bit for it. I'm happy with it. It's a good album. Joe, how about you?
I'm unmuted. All right, thank you. And it's funny you mentioned the open discussion of mental health. I have a small non-musical anecdote, but that's really important to me. I got a Lions jersey this year, and I picked out number 5, David Montgomery, because just a few days before there was one of those stupid up close and personal features on a pregame where he's talking about finally dealing with his mental health and how how much it helped him to get help with his brain and his wiring, and how much better it made his life. And I thought that's huge, coming from a young millionaire athlete who would seem to have everything they wanted, but to say that, and I see that a lot more in sports. I think that's huge. So maybe there's hope for that. But I love that description of My Morning Jacket as trying to be the psychedelic Marvin Gaye. And I thought if you had an aspiration musically, like that would be a great one. Like if you're getting interviewed and you want to describe what you were doing, that would be great. That's intriguing. I'm fans of a lot of My Morning Jacket songs, and I've never been able to wrap myself fully around them. And Andrew, we talked about that when I'm driving around in Nashville, and I have spent a lot of time listening to them, and I feel like I love a lot of their songs and a lot of their records, and I keep discovering more. And some of them, like after I listened to Is for the third time while painting my kid's room this weekend, it just started to go in that Spotify bands like this shuffle, and I heard a lot of their tunes. I heard a lot of other stuff that I thought was great, and there were ones that I didn't love. I like the fact that Jim James is a shapeshifter, and as the band, they're kind of trying to shapeshift. I don't think that's successful all the time for me, but I love that when a band, defines themselves by not being defined, from song to song. Like, just to name one of my favorites, Drive By Truckers. They sound like Drive By Truckers all the time, even if the songs are different. That's what they sound like. I don't get that with them. I think he sings songs thinking he's trying to embody somebody else's voice a lot, which I think is cool. So I spent a lot of time with this one. I would love to see them live. I think that's where these songs would really come alive. I think sometimes they take these big swings in production, and sometimes they work better than others, like NZ, that whole like dense reverb wall. I loved, I spent a lot of time with this record. I like it a bunch. I had the song list up on my phone, and then it shut down. I started listening to it again today, and I got through to Everyday Magic before I got sidetracked, and that one started to grow on me. But Out in the Open's great. Half a Lifetime's great. Overall, it's a really strong, fun record, and I'm going to check tour dates and see if I can maybe catch them this summer. So that's my take on that.
Well, I would love to be at your first My Morning Jacket show, Joe. And what you were saying about the Truckers, that's interesting, because I thought I had an idea about what a Patterson Hood solo album would sound like, but we talked about that at the end of the show last month, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into with that Patterson Hood record. And if it weren't for you and Rick nudging me on last month's episode, I might not have really pondered it. I don't think I actually started listening to it until after our February episode. So I think that Patterson record is, going into different realms sonically. And there's clearly, like, the early Jacket is more like, like they all had the long hair, and they were all just, every song was just like a hard jam. And I think their first 3 or 4 albums were like that. And then Z was when they pivoted, when things became sunnier and smokier, and there's all this reverb. And that's when the kind of, and then the Evil Urges up until the last one, Self-Titled, was, I think, them going off in a more experimental direction, maybe Self-Titled being their mellowest album. There was Waterfall 1, there was Waterfall 2, which was the outtakes from Waterfall 1 that they put out during the pandemic. The weird thing with them, though, you guys, is that with their albums, they don't put out they're not like Jesse Wells has put out like 4 or 5 albums in in a year. And we've been talking about this on our chat sometimes about how some people just overwhelm me with too much content, no editing. Well, the Jacket are the opposite. They curate their own, what they're going to put out in the world. They don't put it out that often. It's 4 years since their last album. And it's only, a 38-minute, 40-minute experience after having to wait 4 years for it. So they definitely chose what we were going to get on this record. I think that the live thing with them is they toured relentlessly between albums, regardless, never played the same set list twice. It's kind of like a family, they're not huge like Dead and Company or Widespread Panic or Fish, and they tend to be more indie, but they bring a lot of people from that jam band world, but their sound is not really jam band per se. But they get that kind of like, we're all at a celebration together kind of vibe at the show. I thought, was it, I think it's from the everything was, I said the name of it and I can't say it, the Backwards from the Beginning song.
Beginning from the Ending.
Yeah, that they have, no, it's not that one. It's Die For It. I think is the one that has a bunch of effects on, it's Die For It has all the effects on Jim's voice. And it almost made me think of like Whole Lotta Love or something weird, had a weird kind of, Zeppelin-y, thing to it. And then there's some of them where they are, if it's not Marvin Gaye, they're being Al Green, or, they're definitely being in that 70s period. So anyone else want to we can pivot in a second to Jason, but yeah, let's wrap on the.
No one shouted out the other single that I really liked called Squid Ink. The hook in the chorus is fun because like the last word drops like a full octave down from where he was singing, and it feels like he's down in the ocean with the squid. I don't know. There's just good heavy guitar riffs in this song, and it's a good jam.
Right.
Why can't I forget your face? Why can't I forget it? Come on. Why can't I forget your face?
But face is like 2 octaves lower.
Been down in the Squid Ink too long.
That sounds like a metaphor for something.
Yeah.
But
it is, and I've on the fan groups they've started to unpack. Somebody had I've heard a couple of good theories, and I couldn't recite them for you on what the Squid Ink, the true meaning of the Squid Ink. So, but yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of funky, and Time Waited is definitely like a love song. There's a couple of love songs, and unlike our next topic, there's not a lot of like gossip magazine type buzz about the personal life of Jim James. Apparently, he might have a girlfriend, but there's no headlines about who Jim James's girlfriend is. We'll get to that next one in a second. Any final thoughts on My Morning Jacket Is?
I think Jim James actually works on the severed floor of Lumen.
That checks out.
So if you're not familiar with that TV series, people's work lives and personal lives are completely separated. And I think that's something that he's earned, and he's not such a huge celebrity that he doesn't have to. I'm going to go ahead and move us into our next topic, gang.
Good segue.
Yeah. So related to that, it was very hard for me to not have already decided about Foxes in the Snow before I heard anything but the singles. They put out, I think, 2 singles. Foxes in the Snow, the title track, and Bury Me, the opening track, were out before the album release. But as we were building up to the album release, I was completely inundated with everybody's opinion about everything about this record. So one line of thinking, which was so intimidating, was because he went solo acoustic in the studio, just him and his guitar, and he went to Electric Lady in New York, where he's never recorded before, and he cut the whole record like in a week, right? So some people were comparing this to Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska. And I know there's no, right, Scott, right? It's just don't even, right? But I'm hearing this, and not that that would be wrong in hypothesis or even aspiration, but it's not, it just doesn't work on so many levels. But this idea that it had that, it was going to have that kind of a cultural impact before the general public had even heard it. And then some other place I read, so I heard that, oh, this is going to be his Nebraska. And I'm like, ah. And then someone else is like, well, this is a shoe-in for Americana album of the year. Now, I know you all know how much I love our top 10 at the end of the year. But I think everyone in this group knows that a top 10 is just a silly thing that music freaks like to do, but it's not, you know, and so this idea of like, it's the greatest album of a generation and it's the best folk album of the year, you know, so there's that happening. Then there's the fallout from the Amanda Shires Jason Isbell marriage, which some Americana fans had built up into our generation's Johnny Cash and June Carter, you know, and she saved him from his own demons, helped him get sober. They made a beautiful child together. They have a 10-year-old daughter named Mercy. And there was all the, you know, she put out an album called Take It Like a Man, where she had some songs that really stuck it to Jason, like were real jabs at Jason while they were still married. They were in a documentary on HBO, I believe it's called Running with Our Eyes Closed, that you can see them fighting in the studio and being really kind of snippy with each other. And I didn't even know, this is part of why I wish Rick was on the pod today, because I don't even know the term parasocial until a couple of years ago, because he taught me the term and he showed me a book about it, which was a very helpful book. But a parasocial relationship is a relationship you have with somebody famous, and it feels like a very real, intimate relationship to you, but it's completely one-sided insofar as they don't even know who you are, right? You know, and I do have a personal relationship with Jason Isbell. I'm a hardcore fan, stan, super fan, whatever. And so I found myself getting really invested in this divorce narrative stuff, even though if I've been divorced twice. My first spouse was like a common law spouse. We were never legally married. And then I was legally married, but I had two decade-long relationships, both which were like marriages. The first one involved having a kid. And if the thought of thousands of people on the internet that I don't know talking about my divorce with such passion and such opinionated opinion. I mean, just the thought of that is so disgusting and weird and effed up to me. I'm like, no, stop. And I'm saying all this to say that I was so wrapped up in all of this, you know, it was very hard for me to finally get to the actual album because there was so much baggage that I had affiliated with it. And it's not just a divorce album. It's also, I've fallen madly in love with this younger woman, a New York painter from Calgary, Alberta, who is blonde. My ex-wife is a brunette, and I'm living in her apartment in New York instead of living at home, you know, where I'm co-parenting. You know, I've basically moved to New York from Nashville. And there's half the album is love songs about my new lover, and half the albums are like really harsh and blunt divorce songs. And then throw into the mix even more so, there are some of these really cheesy lines. So he has this one cheesy line, God said, hold my beer. There's one line, I love the carrot, but I really like the stick. And the ways that those lines come across is they're kind of like, ooh, did he really just sing that? But I've come, now that I've listened to them over and over again in the context of the whole album, I want to get a t-shirt to wear to his show that says God said hold my beer, and I want to get another t-shirt that said I really like the stick, you know, with a little parrot pig. I don't even know, like, I mean, is that his kink? I don't even know. Like, it's so wild. But there's a song about Alabama that deals with like racism. There's songs about basically living daily life. It's almost like a jingle. Don't be tough. It's just like little sayings about everyday life. And I Scrabble, as you guys know, which is basically like Spotify Wrapped on demand on a daily basis. You can just go and get your listening statistics. and unfortunately, like you guys who are into hard media with your turntables and your CDs, you can't scrobble from your turntable. So it's probably partially why my records just sit on the shelf and they don't get listened to, because I can't go into my statistical evaluation of myself. But if scrobbling is any evidence, Jason Isbell's Foxes in the Snow will probably be my shoe-in for the album of the year, because I just cannot stop listening to it. I've heard that the solo acoustic concerts have been amazing. He just did a 3-night stand this last weekend in Nashville, and he's got an Orphan 4th night in Nashville in 4 days. And so I'll be there for that and I'll check it out. But I love the record. I can't wait to hear your thoughts, especially those of you who are not so like deep in the inner Isbell circle as I am.
Who could be?
And exactly.
Which is the song with the tips? That's
Don't Be Tough, which is that's actually my favorite on the album.
Really?
Yes,
I can't finish it.
No, I feel like Don't Be Tough is cut from the same cloth as Outfit. It's just that.
Well, I thought that, but I thought it's just sort of a weak sauce follow-up, like he's just trotting on the same ground and
again
from a much different human position.
No,
that one comes
see,
from.
I'm like Andy, I wanted to like get past all the gossip, and I wish that he would have done like a straight to 4-track thing like Bruce did with Nebraska, which is why Nebraska works. I don't think this is a horrible album, but for me, this is mid-tier Jason. And keep in mind, there's a lot of lesser songwriters who would kill to write a mid-tier Jason song. And I get that this kind of record had to happen. So what I think doesn't matter. This is a record Jason need to make. He needs to make this for himself. And when I got to the point where I started reading reviews, and one reviewer said songs A, B, and C are about Amanda, and then the other reviewer were saying the same songs were about his new girlfriend. At that point, I'm like, no, okay, let's put all that aside. And I honestly don't want to hear him sing about his new girlfriend. I want to hear him like really seriously examine what went wrong. And I know that sounds harsh. And again, what I think doesn't matter. And again, I think Don't Be Tough is a great song. I feel like it's just a lot of really great advice. And again, I think it's cut from that same cloth as Outfit. And that's all I got to say.
All right. Well, I have opinions. My little bit on this is, if I wrote one of the all-time great love songs, like If We Were Vampires, I would be so embarrassed that the person I wrote it about divorced me. I would have to hide for 1,000,000 years, never write another song, have years of therapy. Jason and I are not alike.
How do you live that down?
How do you live that down? There are no other songs you can write. Like, even period, like Weather Vane's a great album. How could you write another great album after that? So my expectations of what he can do is up here, even though he's so great. And musically, like, it's a good album. He has a great voice. He can play guitar. No complaints there. But like we were saying, there's just so much context around this album that I don't think you can even listen to it and begin to understand it without the context. And I hate that. You can listen to the My Morning Jacket album not knowing who Jim James is and love it for exactly what it is. It was meant to be listened to by other people. Just this Jason album should be his. He needs to do these songs to himself and play them for his best friends. And just the celebrity of it all is very icky to me.
It's his therapy.
To have the audacity to give advice in Don't Be Tough is just kind of cringy. And you know, that's where I'm at. My other big critique is he's blowing up our spots, name dropping Roberts in the Ryman. He needs to cool it and stop telling the world about our cool spots.
Where'd that thought go?
Sorry.
Like, rewind for a sec. Maybe I can read it on my face. So I'm gonna come at this as a drive-by trucker fan, and he left and I listened. I had the first CD and I've listened to him throughout his career, but I've never been a huge fan. And I didn't really realize that he'd become this giant of American songwriting, which is great because he wrote great songs then, you know, and he's improved and evolved, and that's great. But I'm so far removed from any of the celebrity stuff, aside from knowing he had a sort of a celebrity musician wife and it didn't end well, you know. I knew that, but wasn't really invested in any of that drama, you know. I liked him as a songwriter telling stories, which is, I think, a strength. And as I mentioned to Scott, it's like my listening taste right now very hard away from white men or women or anybody telling their little stories about their heartaches and shit. It's not bad. I listen to a ton of songs like that, but I've got the radio on in my work van program to 97.9, which is in Spanish. I have no idea what they're talking about, but you know, some of the music is awesome. So that's great. I don't know what any of it is.
No.
It could be, you know, a shopping list.
But, I think you should have called this Heartaches and Shit.
Heartaches and Shit. That would be good. I think it's a good record. It's not my favorite. What I want to, you know, talk a little bit about his role in Drive By Truckers and how better they are without each other now too. I recently got a live record that they put out years ago, cheap, new, at a store in New Jersey. It was live at Plan 9. It's like a 3-disc set or something of an in-store, and it's supposed to be a great set from their last days of Jason and Shauna before the band evolved. And since then, the band's been the same. They've become this really amazing, tight powerhouse band. And you listen to that set, and that's the best they had. I'm like, that's good. That's good. But they're better now. Isbell's better now. So the world's benefited from that. This record should maybe be more intimate and not have had to suffer through this celebrity carnival that preceded it, so you could just listen to this album from a pure place instead of, you know, being flooded with other people's thoughts while you're trying to enjoy it.
Or maybe he should have put it out under a pseudonym, you know, like Sturgill's Johnny Blue Skies. Maybe he's like a Johnny Gray Clouds or something.
Maybe it would still be the same thing if he tried to dodge his identity even a little. It would be even harder on him. I just think he was in him, and it had to get out, and it carries all that other weight on it, which hangs on the album.
I'm just going to come out and say it. The podcast that is really driving me really crazy right now is Stephen Hyden and Ian Cohen on IndieCast, because they really, in my opinion, they slagged and dragged that Jason album, and I think they slagged and dragged the Jacket album.
Haters.
And there was a smugness. I like the way you said it, Amy. I think Amy, you crystallized a lot of the criticisms I've heard, but you did it in such a respectful and succinct way. Because unfortunately, I think a lot of us have been forced into, you know, Team Amanda versus Team Jason. You know, like people are like, I can't believe that he's allowed these songs when Mercy might hear them, you know, and you know that he's already in trouble with the widow of Justin Townes Earl because of the song he wrote about Justin Townes Earl, grieving Justin Townes Earl from his perspective as a friend who also probably used with Justin Townes Earl back when they were both using. And she's gone on the public record and said, my daughter heard that song you sang about him, and I'll never forgive you, basically, for writing that song. Well, like, I mean, you know, Mercy's probably going to go to therapy, but as we've already established with, you know, Jim James, everybody should go to therapy.
Yep.
You know, and whether you're and I don't know, it's kind of like back in college, you know, they're always like, separate the artist from the art, and don't go and read their biography, just read their novel or whatever. But you can't really do that, even
not now anymore.
And you couldn't really back then either, you know. I mean, like Kerouac's alcoholism and his demise as an alcoholic, he was going on TV and being drunk in public on TV and being an asshole, you know, and everybody knew that it was because of the alcohol. You know, anyway, my point being this, I don't think this album would work without all of the reasons why it doesn't work. So it simultaneously works and doesn't work for the same reasons. But I guess I'm enough of a gross voyeur and super fan that I'm happy to be in his living room while he processes all his shit, you know.
Like, we're saying it would be
yes.
better if he kept it to himself, but I think for the fans, it's so good that he's sharing it because we do want to know what he's feeling because it's part of the melodrama.
He's not going to win either way. It's Schrodinger's cat.
He's also in the business of selling records. You know, that design, the album cover, that little dollhouse, it's a dollhouse. And it's based on like a dollhouse you can buy from a dollhouse catalog. And it's a painting of a dollhouse that his current girlfriend, who's a professional painter for like her day job is professional painter. She painted it. You go into the record store and they have one of those gigantic cardboard displays that looks like a gigantic dollhouse based on her painting of the actual dollhouse. And then the albums are sitting in like a little cardboard pocket that like juts out from the dollhouse. It's like, it's quite cool. It's cool. It's also ostentatious as fuck. So it's like, you know, there's not this.
That's big money.
But
like he's also selling this shit. He's like the guy in the Village, you know, you guys have been to New York. He's like the guy in the Village with the burned CDs back in the day, you know, like he's just hawking his fucking shit on the street. Here, buy my damn record already, you know? So like, I mean, I think there's like an element of like, he's hustling his own grief and his own joy in such a way that it seems shameless, maybe gross, but also incredibly vulnerable and honest and beautiful at the same time. So
wasn't there also a book called Foxes in the Snow? And did that have any impact on this?
I heard there was a painting. Maybe
there's the Bell and Sebastian song "Fox Singular in the Snow."
I read in one of the reviews that there was something about like a book, and I didn't dive deep into that aspect of it. But that reminds me, the title track is another one of the stronger songs on this. So it's not all bad.
Well, I think what do you say, Joe?
I said I like a lot. You said it's not all bad, and I said I like a lot of it. Yeah. But as a whole, like it's not. I so rarely listen to a guy sitting and playing guitar for 40 minutes. That's jarring and weird.
Yeah, I think I liked Gravelweed the most. At the one hand, like it has the best musical hook to it, but also some of the more cringy lyrics. So yeah, that's just kind of what this album is. I don't know. Is there a discussion to be had about just why it is appealing to listen to a person sing about their most vulnerable things? Why, like, country music is that?
It's the same reason why people love reality TV, because they're bored with their lives and they need to see other people self-destruct to feel something. I remember when Bravo showed really cool, like artsy independent movies and stuff like that. Like they had like the Michael Moore documentary series and the Errol Morris documentary series, and those days are gone.
Yeah. And MTV had music.
Yes.
There'll be a reality series that's Michael Moore and Errol Morris and all these documentarians living in a house trying to.
If anyone is an Ethan Hawke fan, I'm a huge Ethan Hawke fan. He produced a movie called Blaze about Blaze Foley a couple years ago, and it also has Townes Van Zandt in it, and that whole kind of Austin, Texas to Nashville outlaw scene in the 70s. I mean, everybody was drunk and screwing around and unstable, and I guess too, I think that's one of the things.
There was no 24-hour news cycle then.
No, there wasn't. But I think one of watch that movie Blaze if
it's a great movie. Yeah, I agree. It's great.
Well,
who played Blaze Foley?
He was. He was in a band. He was in a band. I know that. I know that Charlie Sexton was. I think Charlie Sexton was Townes Van Zandt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think
Remember when he was a teen up and comer, Charlie Sexton, the next blues hero?
I'm just gonna throw this out there. When a person gets sober and like starts to live a better life after they've been, because apparently when Jason was in the Truckers, he was an obnoxious he was a lot younger, and he was apparently very, very obnoxious because the rest of the Truckers were all using and drinking too. It was just that Jason's using and drinking was the using and drinking that like got them to push him out of the band, at least as far as I've understood the accounts. And that Blaze Foley movie shows just the general degeneracy of being a professional musician in the 70s, like 70s and 80s. It's just a degenerate time and a degenerate profession. And I think there's an element to Jason because of his social justice, some of his social justice songs and his success. And, you know, he goes on a lot of, you know, interviews and podcasts. He goes and gets like, you know, speaks at universities and speaks to recovery seminars and stuff. And I think there's an element of him that some people think is that he's just a little bit too precious or a little bit too righteous, you know, or a little bit too much of a crusader or overconfident in his redemption narrative. And I think there's something about this album that brings that down several notches. You know, you may be sober, but you're still an asshole and you still hurt people's feelings and you still want to literally cuss out your ex-wife in public, like, you know, for money, you know.
What one moment I do like on this record when he expresses like kind of being how he's gobsmacked or filled with wonder at how much of an asshole he actually could be or was. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like that, you know, his voice sounds so sweet that it doesn't have the impact if it wasn't, it would if it maybe like, you know, 4-track TIAC and if it were, you know, but it's a pretty heavy moment just to own up with horror.
Are we talking about the moment when he says, you know, I did what I thought I was supposed to do, and you can that moment?
No, but there's that too, you know.
Okay, so it was Ben Dickey who played Blaze Foley.
Yeah.
In case
Cinda Williams wrote a great song about Blaze Foley.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great movie.
Yes.
All right, now it is time for the round robin of recent listens, recent recommendations, and we will not conclude. I was numbering these episodes and I've lost track of what number this is. I'll go back and tell us what number. But episode number 14 or 15 or whatever this is of the Music Nerds Record Club. We're going to do a round robin of recent listens, and then Scott is going to tell us what next month's topic. We're meeting on same time, same channel on Monday, April the 21st. And at that point, hopefully we'll find out what before we leave tonight. Scott will tell us what our topic is so we can cram for next month. So what's in your most listened to list for the last month since we saw each other last?
My list is pretty short. I haven't been listening to too much new stuff lately. My friends have a music themed March Madness competition, which is really fun. And this year it's Best American Rock Band. So just been listening to a lot of great American rock bands and learning about some maybe like lesser known ones as we're kind of talking about who was left off. So Husker Du made it onto the list. Been listening to them. They're awesome. But related to that, one of the other competitors mentioned Mission of Burma. And I listened to the album he recommended. And I'm like, yeah, this is the stuff. I guess I knew the name, but hadn't sat with it. And it's right in that lane with Husker Du and Minutemen. What else? I was given a couple songs by Doobie Brothers. I guess I appreciate that now. Sleater Kinney, what turns out is one of my best friend's all-time favorites, and I didn't know that he loves Sleater Kinney. So they're awesome. Listened to a couple albums from them this week. And Living Color. I embarrassed myself not so long ago when I heard a cover of what's their song?
Cult of Personality.
Thank you. I didn't know that song, so I'm making it right. So that's what I've been listening to.
So am I understand correctly? You never heard the Doobie Brothers before?
That's awesome.
There's a lot of these rock bands that are just it wasn't in my house growing
and
up.
and we don't
there's
have
no
to
reason I'd
assume
seek it out.
anybody's heard of anything, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, I teach people who were born in 2006, 2005,
Right.
2007. I mean, it's
What a wonder to discover, Mission of Burma and Husker Du and the Doobie Brothers. I have those moments with other bands all the time.
Yeah. Imagine all three of them on the same bill.
Ooh.
Great. Hey, the Doobies are going to be out on the road.
That's when I reach for my revolver. That was my horrible Michael McDonald covering Mission of Burma.
So my big thing since last time, and it's not something that we haven't talked to, I'm pretty sure we've talked about this artist before, probably have, and you guys have probably all heard of him. He's such a big deal on TikTok and YouTube. He's very prolific. It's Jesse Wells. I've even mentioned him once earlier in this episode, but I went to see him live, and it was a truly transformative experience. It was so incredible. And then I've really started to get more heavily into his current album, The Middle, a lot, or I think it's just called Middle. But as I'm looking at my recent listenings, I've been listening to Jesse Wells just a ton, and of course the new Jacket and the new Jason. I think last month we were talking about the new Sharon Van Etten. That's still like a really one that's in heavy rotation. But as I've taken it just to kind of a deeper and a slower pace with Jesse Wells, I'm just really completely taken by his wordsmithery. I mean, and that's the thing, because we talk about, I love Jim James's lyrics, but his lyrics are more kind of, a lot of them are a little bit more abstracty or just kind of not gimmicky, but kind of just a couple of words kind of mushed together. I think Jeff Tweedy does that a lot with Wilco. He'll just kind of do like a little bit of a word salad type approach, which is almost like abstract poetry. And I think Jason, we'll agree, is a great lyricist, which is why those kind of cornier or clunkier lines on this new album stood out so hard to people, is because of that. But as far as unbelievable wordsmithery, Jesse Wells is like at some other level in that, Phil Oakes, Bob Dylan lineage. And I just met somebody on Reddit who was writing about Jesse Wells, who was trying to say that he's not our generation's Dylan. He's Jesse Wells's Jesse Wells. He's just a true songwriting genius. He's not trying to be derivative of Bob Dylan. He's just literally doing Jesse Wells, which I thought it was really kind the way this person said it. And she had her whole like rationale for why she thought that Jesse Wells was just a person made for writing those kind of songs in 2024, 25, because of all the topic, he's written about Gaza, he's written about United Health, and that whole thing. So, and he writes about Walmart too. He's got a really funny song about Walmart, a song about cancer. I mean, he's very much a topical songwriter. So Jesse Wells has been my, outside of Jason and the Jacket, my most listened to artist since our last gathering.
Andy, I'll have you know I've started scrobbling too, so I will keep you updated with what I've been listening to statistically.
So I think you have to sign up with Last.fm to do it, I think, but there's different apps that Scrabble, and the one I have is called Pano, I think, P-A-N-O. That's the one I put on.
I think that's the one I downloaded.
And because it seems to be the most easy to use and the most data, yeah.
And that tracks your listening metrics.
Yeah, anything that you're playing on your phone, it'll catch it and put it on the list.
Yeah, it doesn't jibe with the with Wax.
I think you could leave your phone on in the room, and it might pick it up.
That app,
way
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I could do that.
That's so big brothery, I know.
I'd be sick.
I use the app. The app has a button where you can Shazam with it, and then it adds. So, kind of get a 2-for-1 on that.
Scott, what about you? We haven't heard from you yet on recent listens.
You know what? Let's have Joe go first, so that way I can do mine and then just go right into the spiel about next month.
Okay.
I don't know what I've been listening to new other than My Morning Jacket and Jason Isbell for the most part. Lots of singles out there. Like there's a new Peter Hosapple single from the DBs that I'm always happy to hear. Yeah, he's got a new single.
I did not know that.
Drop stuff, no full records. But what I've really been listening to, well, I want to talk about the Waterboys new one. Just the other day, I heard, I put it on our chat, song from Letter from an Unknown Girlfriend, the fourth song they've dropped from Life, Death, and Dennis Hopper, which is going to be a double LP. This song is a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. It's Fiona Apple, who I don't really know her career other than she's got a huge celebrity that dogs her music around, much like Jason, I think. But she's singing his words and his melody, and it is what it is. It's somebody commenting and really losing their shit emotionally about their relationship with Dennis Hopper and how it fits in. And I think it's cool because it's not a hagiography about this guy. You know, he calls it genius, but he's got another voice in there, and he's written a song in a woman's voice, which I, as a man, how can I know for sure? But it rings really true about the rawness of those feelings, especially from a woman's perspective in that sort of relationship, and just palpable rage. It just gives shivers down my spine. And each of the 4 songs he's released have been wildly different and sort of touch on that big music phase. There's some of that sort of loungy Bacharach-y stuff from Room to Rome. That's that Andy Warhol song. And then he did another one that dropped another one. The third one he's dropped called I Don't Know How I Got There. And that touches that big music thing, even though it's not big. It's more like Old England or something. But, you know, it's just a simple riff about surviving and not knowing how you got there. And I think it's great. Like how this record falls together should be really cool. I'm very jacked about it. I think I had this, who did I have this conversation with? Reggae Sunsplash. It's Blurred, but it's a record I had in high school that I believe I lent to Odell Ailes from well, he wasn't in Spawn Ranch or Majesty Crush yet. He was just one of these cool punk rock dudes. Also super nice, you know. He's one of those kids who had it all. Like, he was cool and everybody liked him from across the spectrum. I think he was just that kind of dude. But I thought I lent him this record and I never got it back. So every time I see his name popping, I'm like, he has my Reggae Sunsplash. So I finally ordered it. Haven't heard it in years. I put it on. The songs are great, but it's so sloppily produced. It's like there's fade outs on live songs. Like, they fade out, even though the next song might be the next one they play. But it's just a great compilation from a festival they had in Jamaica back in the day. It's got some of the greats from the time: Steel Pulse, Gregory Isaac, Third World, and it's some really hot music. And when they're playing, and even in some of the cool chatter, which is in that Jamaican patois or accent that I found so intriguing as a teenager, you know. It's just kind of a magical record. Also been listening to the Secret Machines, not new, but I hadn't heard them before. So I've been spending some time with them. And Supertramp. That's why I got that. I just thought Supertramp was kind of like My Morning Jacket does a lot of what Supertramp does. This proggy, folky combination that throws in elements from almost anything else in any given song or verse, with very different voicings from song to song. It was meant as a compliment, in case anybody thought otherwise. That's what I got.
Scott, before you go, I want to jump in because he mentioned Odell. I've been on a Majesty Crush deep dive. I did a Majesty Crush episode of Teacher on the Radio. I interviewed Hobie Eklund and Henry Boyer, who's the son of Bill Boyer from the Blanks, who has the Majesty Crush Fan Archive Instagram page. And I did go out and buy an album. I've been trying to buy fewer albums, but I bought the numero uno double album release called Butterflies Don't Go Away, because Hobie told me I had to buy it for the book. It comes with an insert booklet, and Hobie Eklund wrote the liner notes, and it's incredibly beautiful album. Apparently, Majesty Crush, according to this little blurb, was the only American band in the UK shoegaze movement of the early 90s. They were the American accessory annex to the UK shoegaze movement. And people really like to talk about Dave Strawder's lyrics. His songs include songs about stalking Jodie Foster, torture, a female cashier in an adult bookstore, a porn star, a tennis star, and an actress. And then I think the other song's about alcohol abuse. But anyway, it's got the album's incredible. They're an incredible band. And interviewing Hobie after all these years was just such a thrill for me. Interviewing Henry, who's like the same age as my students, who's completely obsessed with the 90s shoegaze band, that was really fun too. So, all right, Scott, I'm sorry, back to you.
No, you're good. So I got a second Joe's emotion about the Waterboys. All the pre-release tracks have been very promising, but I feel like they've been kind of diverting us. It's like, yeah, here's a little taste, but I feel like we're not going to get a really accurate picture of what the album is like until we get it. And at least that's my interpretation of it. I'm looking forward to getting my mind blown by the new Waterboys. Before I get into individual albums, I've picked my summer jam already. It's only March, but Haim's new single Relationships, it's just the sweetest ear candy, or should I say the most bittersweet ear candy, and I love them. They're just badass Jewish girls from the West Coast. Can't get enough of them. I've only listened to this once, but I love the Chills, as does Joe. And this is a collection of songs that Martin Phillips had written early in his career but had never recorded, and recorded them like shortly before he passed. And then he gave his blessing to everybody else to finish them after he passed. And so I've listened to it once. It's awesome. I'm looking forward to listening to it again. I need to improve my time management skills. I haven't had a chance to listen to this, but Charlie Crockett's awesome. And he's kind of like this honky-tonk dude with like horns, kind of Bakersfield meets Stax Volt. He's great.
Hey, Scott, you muted yourself accidentally. Go back and start this one over. Thank you.
You accidentally muted during Charlie Crockett.
Okay. So, all right. So you missed a lot. So Charlie Crockett, honky tonk dude, horns, kind of a really cool country R&B hybrid. Looking forward to listening to the new Japanese Breakfast. As you can see, I've been ordering shit and haven't had the chance to listen to because I had to do my homework for tonight. But the one album I really want to spend time with, talking to you guys about, Year of the Slug from Caroline Rose, who I'm a huge fan of. Her last 3 albums made my top 10. She went from her first album was like straight up alt country. Loner was just this electro pop masterpiece. Superstar was just awesome dance pop. And then The Art of Forgetting was just this gorgeous breakup album. This one, she recorded to her phone using GarageBand. So I like to make the joke that this is Uncle Carol's Nebraska. But she played in town recently because she's been on a tour to support this, which she refers to as her bootleg album. And she played at this tiny club in Charlotte called the Evening Muse because she didn't want to like stick people with like exorbitant service fees. We had front row seats. It was awesome. I've seen her. This is my 3rd time seeing her. And I actually got to talk with her afterwards. And my good friend Margaret was an awesome wing person. And just while I was talking with Caroline, was like, he's got this podcast. And like, so I didn't have to be the douche who was just like, I got a podcast. So that was nice. But this is a great record. The more I listen to it, the more it grows on me. It's just, she said that maybe at some point she'll release it with a full band recording, but honestly, she doesn't need to. She can do whatever the hell she wants to do. And she's just one of the best singer-songwriters that you're not listening to. I can't recommend her highly enough. If you get a chance to see her live, go do it. And she does a killer Cher impression. But let's talk about April, shall we? I wanted to have fun with this. So I'm going to have fun and you're going to have fun too. We're all going to get involved. I'm playing a little bit of a puppet master. And so next month, I'm going to do a little bit, but I'm going to give you all assignments and you will get those separately. I will send them to you tomorrow. I've thought them out. Ooh. And you are not to tell anybody else in the group what your assignment is. So everything will be only I will know. Dance, little puppets. So that's it. It's going to be fun.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah,
Can you
the role playing game, like party game, mystery theater aspect of this is very ticklish to me. I can't wait.
And it's like you all have specific. No two assignments are the same. So
are they music related, or are you just sending us out to a 7-Eleven at 3 a.m. to talk to a guy named Juan?
No, Joe, you're going to do a TED talk on like fine versus extra fine sandpaper.
Great.
And Amy is going to do a presentation about seashells,
Great.
domestic versus imported.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy is just going to count to 10 in different languages.
Wow.
So
that's
the gist of it, but those aren't the actual things
right.
that we're okay.
You will get your assignments tomorrow, and I'm hoping that we can have Rick and Gus join us because I've got assignments for them as well.
I think Rick's probably very likely. I think Gus is probably not because I think he's still in Dublin. I don't think it's. It's like midnight there right now, and I think he's just having too much fun.
Oh God,
living his life in Dublin to be able
so
to
good.
pull this together.
I guess.
So, well, I'll reach out to them and see because I'm hoping that Gus will want to join us because I think that his assignment is the one that I would love to hear his thoughts on.
So you might be the one to bring him back from sabbatical. It sounds like.
And maybe he could record something asynchronous for us to just play at worst.
There you go.
I don't know how that works on the StreamYard side, but we can try to figure it out.
There you go.
Well, everyone, it has been a wonderful hour with Teacher on the Radio, Scott Greenberg, Joe G, and Amy Rock from Nashville, Cookeville, Charlotte, and New City, New York. We will be back on Monday, April the 21st with a top secret topic that we will we'll learn about when we get on the air that night.
It's
I don't know if we've had any viewers tonight. The little button in the top says that we haven't, but I'm gonna copy the YouTube link and send it around, at least in my little fan communities. I'd love to see if we can get some feedback from some of my fellow hardcore Isbell and Jacket fans. But anyway, this was great, you guys. Thank you so much.
I know.
Bye.
Have fun storming the couch.